is Cherry. I'm a foster carer. Been fostering for nearly 16 years now in August, and I'm hoping to get my bouquet, but I'll have to wait and see.
My name is Rinsey. Been fostering now for 20 years. July this year will be 21 years.
Hi, my name's Portia. I'm a foster carer for Greenwich. I have 3 children. I've had them for almost 6 years. There are 2 boys and 1 girl. They are the ages of 11, 10 and 6.
Hi, I'm Dominic. With my partner Emma, we foster children that are 0 to 3 years old, and we've been doing it for the last 15 to 16 months.
Hello, I'm Katie. I'm a foster carer for Greenwich. I've been with Greenwich 10 years. I do 0 to 12 years old.
Hi, I'm Ronnie. I'm a foster carer for Royal Greenwich. I've been fostering now for 10 years.
My name is Adrash. I've been fostering for the last 10 years. 3 years I was Greenwich, and over 6 years was independent agency. I got my own 3 birth children, 1 boy and 2 girls.
I'm Irene. I've been fostering for 17 years. The reason I decided to foster was I so enjoyed bringing up my own family. I had 4 children, and I was very young when I had my children. So when they grew up, I decided that I'd like to do it all over again.
My mum and I were sitting at her house one day watching the news. At the end of the news, there was a help programme saying they are desperate for foster carers. If you think you can give a child a home, if you've got the time, spare room, contact this number. And I said to my mum, "Oh, Mum, you could do this. You've got this 4-bedroom empty house." It was only my brother living there at the time. So my mum said, "Oh, they wouldn't let me do something like that because I'm widowed." And I said, "Well, I'm going to ring that number."
I went into fostering because my brother and sister-in-law fostered for many years, and I took early retirement, and I thought that's what I would like to do. But because all my children were grown up, I thought, let me get back in touch with children. So I worked in a school for a year, and then I applied to be a foster carer, and it's the best thing I've ever done.
We chose to foster with Greenwich because obviously it's our local borough. We've got family that already foster but not with Greenwich, and it's been a long time ambition, but due to circumstances it kind of fell right for us 16 months ago, and we've not looked back since.
We decided to go into fostering basically because we saw an advert on the back of a bus. I was driving behind a bus one day and saw the advert. It seemed interesting, so we looked into it. We got the information from the local newsletters for the area, and we looked into it. We decided to go along to a meeting, and we decided to go ahead and foster because we have 2 grown children of our own, and we felt that we could perhaps offer the same care for another child or children that we gave to our own. We thought we had something to offer just as parents.
I decided to foster. I was a mother and staying home, and I used to see children, they need home in every advertisement, and at the same time I grew up with a lot of children and a big family. When I went back home and when I came to London, I said, okay, I'm gonna do it now. I started doing the fostering. From then, he started in a bit and he fall in love with the job. And I just have, kids in my house. And the challenge come with it as well.
I came into fostering because my brother is a big influence in my life, working in children's homes and working for voluntary overseas with street children. So that's where that part came in. Until I had my own children, I was petrified of children. They'd scream and cry as soon as I came in the room. But once I realised I was a big kid myself, and that's all you had to be to get on with kids, it worked really well.
I suppose really the reasons I came into fostering are quite different in a way, because I'm a bit odd. I'm not a woman that sort of adores children. I didn't actually want children of my own when I was married. And people say to me, well, why foster then? The reason I foster is more about the injustice of what is inflicted on children. And it's quite personal as well, because I do remember as a child yelling at my mum. I never asked to be born. And it kind of struck a chord with me, because none of us asked to be born, and it is a sheer lottery in life as to which part of the world you're born into, whether there's civil war there, poverty. You can't express your opinions for fear of somebody coming and knocking on the door at night because you're considered anti-government. And also as to what type of people are going to be your mum and dad, who are going to look after you they should be looking after you for your whole life. It is a lottery. These children didn't ask to be born, and it's been an eye-opener, I have to say.
When we first thought about joining Greenwich, we approached Greenwich directly and went through the process, which took almost 9 to 10 months. It was quite an intense programme, but it covered off all of our anticipations, our concerns, and it got us more prepared to do the role of fostering. I think prior to that we were naive enough to think that because we had 2 of our own children it'd be an absolute breeze, but it's an eye-opener to any parent. There's a lot more rules, regulations, things you have to be aware of.
Even I do with agency foster, but the children I used to have is Greenwich children. And I used to see the opportunity, the training, and it's my local, and the support they get, because I do take the children to contact, which is based in Greenwich, with the Greenwich Social Service. So I decided it's the best place for me. It's near my home, and the training I'm gonna get and the support. So I decided to change it to Greenwich Social Service.
When I became a foster carer, I was with an agency, and then after 4 years I had a lot of Greenwich children and found that the social workers were giving me a lot of support, and it was a natural progression to move across because there weren't a lot of baby placements for me at an independent agency. And when I came across, I made a call, and there's a really friendly, welcoming voice on the other end. And I moved across and haven't looked back. Wonderful support, training, and you can get as involved as much as you want, doing all sorts of things within the fostering.
It took about 6 months, the whole process from start to being approved took about 6 months. And during that time we had some training. We met foster carers. We went on for training courses to help us prepare, and we also had other social workers come to the house to go through the assessment, which was quite deep and thorough. They talked about your entire life, basically, even your childhood, just to basically find out what sort of life you've lived and what you have to offer.
The hardest part of the assessment process for me was the 2-day workshop. I arrived there and immediately felt quite self-conscious, because once again I was the only singleton. It was 4 couples and me, you know. And one couple, the husband was a policeman, and I felt like, oh, you've got no chance. You know, they all had sort of children. And then one particular exercise we were asked to do, I think it was the very first one actually, we were asked to draw something that represented a really happy experience from your childhood. And I kind of froze because I couldn't actually think of anything. And it was quite upsetting. It was very upsetting. And, you know, other people were drawing away, and the social worker said, oh, you know, I said, there's nothing, I can't think of anything. And she said, oh, come on, there must be something. And that made it worse, because actually there wasn't. And I found that quite tough. You know, it brings to the forefront again a lot of things from your own childhood, and that is always quite difficult. So that was the hardest part, but I was so delighted that I was approved, and through my career I had lots of promotions and things, but I can honestly say to this day I'm still very proud when people say, what do you do? And I say, I'm a foster carer. And it means more to have got through that assessment than all the other promotion panels and things that I had to do in my career. So I'm very pleased with myself that I am a foster carer and I got through.
I thought about it long. When I say long, it just over a year when I thought about it, because I got my own young children. Am I going to feed, or am I going to able to do it? And hearing the children you got in your home they are from different kind of problem. And I just ask myself, and if it's going to fit with my children as well, because they were young to decide it, if I'm going to do it or not. But for them, I made the choice, and I started doing the fostering from little babies. So
we're a fostering family, and I couldn't foster without my family. My children have been involved from the age of 5 and 8, and my husband works, but I'm primary carer. But without them, I couldn't do it. It's an important role, and my children have got so much from it. They're different people for doing it, and they would say that as well. I came across, and when we were approved by Greenwich, we were approved within 6 months. But within the approval, there's a lot of one-to-one talking and looking at your life and finding yourself really, and understanding yourself more, and training as well, which was really interesting, to bring in a lot of the different things that you might come across.
My first placement was an 8-month-old baby girl. I can remember I was painting the garden fence. I had green paint all over my hands when I got the call to go to Eltham to collect her, and had a quick wash up and with the old white spirit to get the paint off my hands, and off I went. It was a very hot day. Her mum was there actually at social services, and that was very difficult, meeting her mum and then taking the baby home. But I remember so clearly, as though it was yesterday, when I got home and the social worker left. Baby was sitting in my lap, and I thought, well, what do I do next?
My placement started as short term, but ended up long term. My first 2 placements were the 8-year-old, who's now 28, and had her sister, who was then 5. Her sister stayed with me for 13 years because with fostering, there's always a plan. The plan was to go back to Mom, so I was told that they would be with us for 3 months. And when that plan didn't work out, then the next plan was adoption. And when that didn't work out, the next plan was long term. And then we asked, could we keep them on? Because by then we loved them, and we wanted so much to keep them because we were quite attached.
We did long-term fostering for quite some time, and we had some really positive results, seeing children go from school into independence. One in particular, he was an Albanian refugee that came to us. He was one of the first young people to be smuggled into England. And as it happens, my husband and I was watching the news, and we saw it was in Thamesmead, a local area, where they found a lorry and it had these refugees in it. And this was a young boy. He was about 14, 15. And after we'd watched and discussed the news, so we had a phone call asking us if we would take this young boy.
At the moment, we're just short-term fostering because we are only 0 to 3. We deliberately took 0 to 3 because it keeps it below the age of our children, and we didn't want the conflict between having older children in with our own family. So normally 0 to 3-year-olds get picked up as either going back to the parents or to a friend and family, or ultimately adoptions.
A couple of years ago, I decided to broaden my availability for fostering. I was made redundant from my main job, so I decided I wanted to stay home and increase the amount of fostering I did. So therefore, I volunteered to change my, they call it a specification. That means what you're approved to do for fostering. So I went from age 4 to 7 to 0 to 17. And for the first time in my life, I had babies to care for. Not only babies, but twins. And that was quite scary because you feel so responsible for these little babies. And foolishly, I thought this would be lovely placement, this, because they probably sleep a lot and I can, read the paper or read a book. No, because they don't sleep or need feeding at the same time, unfortunately. And then when one's asleep, the other one, is waking up. That was difficult in a different way because there was so much that needed doing for these babies, and it's just a constant sort of routine of feeding, changing, burping, and then you start all over again, and it's very time consuming, but wonderfully rewarding because I saw the stages of them lying on their back, just kicking their legs and gurgling, to trying to roll over and get on their tummy and then crawling, and it was wonderful seeing them so inquisitive and learning how to do things. That was a really rewarding time.
Well, we talked it over and decided that it might be an idea to change our fostering. So we decided to do respite, which you only have the children for a week or a few weeks, and also emergency duty, which is where you're on call, and when they have a child and they need to be placed immediately, then they would call us. On respite, one little boy we had in particular, we used to have him every 2 weeks, and we had him for about 2 or 3 years.
There came a time in my fostering career when I really feel I wanted to do something a bit more. And what I started doing was doing supervision of contact for an agency. And the then team manager of the fostering service, we got together, and I always said, we could do this in fostering. And together with a group of foster carers, we spoke about it together with the team manager and came up with the Foster and Support Task Group, which is more commonly known now as the FSTG. The FSTG is absolutely wonderful, and it's so dear to my heart. I coordinate it with another foster carer. There are 2 of us. Started with just 1, but it grew so huge that we had to have 2.
I am a member of the task group. Although we are expected to have our own support network, if there are times when we're not able to use one of them, we then have to get in touch with our supervising social worker, who will then speak to the coordinator of the group, and they will in turn will identify a foster carer. And you'll find in Greenwich that we all tend to know each other, so you always know where your child is going. You will be able to contact that foster carer to let that foster carer know your child needs, their routine, so really they're in good hands.
And we do things like school runs. Say, for instance, if a child is placed with a foster carer who already has a school run, but it could be in the opposite direction, we would get involved and we would do a school run, and that approval would come directly from the fostering office for us to do that. We do diversionary work, which could be if a foster carer has a difficult placement. We would be able to go in and help.
In my placement, I got 2 children, 8 and 11 years old, and both of them, they are autistic children. The younger one is hard. He doesn't sit, he doesn't speak. He's not potty trained. But by keeping his routine and by doing like searching or going on professional meeting, if they give me tips, anything, we just work in the house as a team. And he's been with me over a year and he's doing good. Our house is not quiet. Most of the time is after school is too hectic, but with happiness, not in a way with crying, but just with the laughter is like that.
I think that the hardest thing we found with the fostering has been the fact that you take on a baby, you literally bring it up as your own because it is obviously such a young age, and then having to bring them up like your own, nurture them, look after them, and then having to return them either to the parents or like friends and family or potentially adopters. It's very difficult. I don't think any preparation will fully prepare you for that actual day. Like I say, we go through training over 9-10 months and ongoing training, and you can't really explain the bond that you get with a child. A lot of people will go into it, I know we certainly did, thinking, okay, it's somebody else's child, we'll look after it, we'll love it, we'll take care of it. But ultimately, we didn't think we'd have that bond because obviously it's not our child, our flesh and blood. I challenge anyone to be that hard. It's a very difficult time. But Greenwich support you with that. We had 2-3 weeks off after our first placement moved on. As a result of, we needed that time to reconnect with our family, make sure we had family time and understood that, and also to give us a chance to sort of get over it and to try and take on the challenge again.
The hardest bit of my job is letting go, because I've fostered so many babies over the years, and whenever they were to leave me, my heart would be broken. I would feel as if my heart's coming out my body. Honestly, it's such a wrench, and it affects me for weeks. So much so that I could never let a child go today and I'm okay to take another child within the next day or the next week or next. I have to have time to really get back on track, because it really does affect me. It's an attachment issue, really, because when the children come to you, you are their parent in that way, and you do everything that a parent would. So when they leave, it's the hardest task.
It's difficult because you get attached with them. You love them no matter what. And when they move out, you feel like, am I going to see them? Are they going to be okay? Are they going to be happy? So that sort of things. It's not only they are going, it's only what will happen to them. Are they going to get to good family? Even if they go back to parents, are they going to have what they experience in our house, like laughing, playing, and nothing like fighting? So you got that sort, and you become very emotional, and it is difficult. It is.
It isn't an easy job, but the satisfaction and the pleasure that you get out of it, and knowing that you have done a little bit to give these children a little bit of happiness. I take great pleasure out of showing them different experiences. Some of them have never been to a restaurant, some of them have never been to a cinema or swimming or anything like that. And that is a joy to me and my husband, to take them and, to see them enjoying what a lot of other children enjoy and experience.
You have to give everything. You have to give everything to these children so they know what it's like to be loved, and you have to give your heart for them to learn how that is and to be able for them to give their heart on when they move on.
When you see the smile of the children, when you see playing, that's the only thing you already have. When they first come, they come you miserable or crying or unhappy, and after a while you see them, they are safe and they do play and they laugh, and when they come, you just see them just the transition they made, and when you see them happy, laughing, that's the reward you got.
The highs of fostering are most definitely seeing a child develop. Obviously, the circumstances that children come to the foster home in are usually from a background of a poor background, I should say. So to move them on so quickly, or even over a longer period of time, but to see them develop into children that have got a chance, that's the ultimate reward. And we've been lucky to see one move on to adoption, and to see that child now with his adoptive parents is heartwarming. Obviously, with older children, you can see the development because you can see their educational growth. You can see them develop into young adults. But with a baby and moving it on quite so quickly, I was always worried, well, would you see any kind of positives? But like I say, moving them on to an adoptive parent, they've now got a family unit, and this child is so settled in that family. That in itself was tremendous, especially knowing the start that the child had.
The best thing about being a foster carer is looking at what effect you have had on the child, about seeing the child progress from the day they come into your care till the time that they leave. A 4-year-old I had last year, he was with me for 8 months, and it was tough going, absolutely tough going. He was a violent little fellow, he really was. He'd experienced domestic violence, but when he left me, I cried. And so did the kids. We cried because we had become increasingly close to him, and we did miss him. And I met his mother a couple of months after he left, and she said to me, he keeps asking to go back to Auntie Cherry. So I did something right. But no, they're huge rewards, huge rewards.
The loveliest part is when you go back and see the child and their new family and keep in touch, and they're settled and they're happy. They still look at you, oddly, as if to say, I think I remember you. But if you can just give a warm feeling for them to move on, that's all that matters. And it's the best job in the world at times when it's like that.
There are lots more things that you'd be asked to do other than actually the physical caring for a child. There's lots of meetings to go to, plans are changed at short notice sometimes, and sometimes you don't always agree with what the social workers decide for this child. You can't see why they've reached this decision, but there usually are reasons behind it, and at the end of the day it's what's best for the child. But you know, sometimes, just as an example, sometimes you wonder why children are allowed to have contact with parents that haven't treated these children very well at all, and you think, well, why are they doing this? But there are reasons behind it, and that's the complex thing of it. There's no easy solution usually. There's no perfect answer to every child's problems. It's very complex, and there's lots of issues that have to be addressed apart from the legal side, and it can be quite difficult to play your part. Whatever you feel yourself, your job is to help achieve the goal set for that child and stick to the care plan.
The reward is enormous, really, to just to make that difference in their life, to see them become responsible adults, people.
For anyone coming into fostering, I think one of the biggest things, for me anyway, is an acceptance that your life, your private life, is no longer actually private. It's very public, it's very open, and some people do find it difficult to accept that. But if you become a foster carer, you have to accept that you're actually looking after someone else's child, so your life will not be public, be private anymore. I guess some of the skills I've picked up along the way, patience. You do have to be extremely patient. And and it's about giving a consistent message to a child, but being there no matter what. It's about the support that you can offer. And I think that is the main thing, so that child will know that they've got a secure base. And that's really, really important.
I think if you're thinking about fostering, you're the right person to foster, because you're coming from a background of obviously understanding that children are needy, they need help, and you're offering them that home. And I think it's a decision you can't take lightly. And I've said previously, it's not as straightforward as just looking after your own children. So you do need to really consider it. But I would say wholeheartedly that you should follow it through. You'll know if it's right for you once you go through the 8 or 9 months of planning and training. Then you'll know for definite. But I would definitely suggest anybody to give it a go, because at the end of the day, it possibly helps a child out.